Welcome to Scandinavian Mind Weekly, our show about the current trends and events within business, tech, fashion, design, culture, and more from the Nordic perspective of our team of editors and contributors. Today on the program, the latest news from EP Summit, the digital fashion conference in Florence, Italy. We had a reporter on the ground and we'll report from there. Also, CB Insights Research have released their future of fashion, technology and the industry. We talk about that, same topic. In other news, Instagram have started testing NFTs with select creators this week.
Ooh.
And the knowledge about NFTs is way lower than you might think, according to a new survey from Samsung Nordics. We are going to hear from Head of Innovation Oskar Nöjd later in the program. I'm Konrad Olsson, Editor-in-Chief and founder of Scandinavian Mind. And I'm here with Roland, Philippe, Kretzschmar, our Editor-at-Large, and Erik Sedin, Junior Editor. Erik, in Paris, how are you?
I'm really well. My first time, and I'm really enjoying it.
Sorry for the booing, Konrad. I couldn't help myself.
Roland is making a comeback on the podcast, and he has a fiery mood this morning when we record. So let's just, but looking forward to talking about that. But Erik, just we need some color, some flavor from Paris. We started traveling again. You landed last night. You're going to attend an event that we can't talk about today. Where we'll talk about that in other episodes. But what are your observations?
So yeah, like you said, I came in last night quite late. It's already dark, and I was like, I have to see, since I'm flying home tomorrow, I was like, I have to see the Eiffel Tower. And I live real close by, and I walked over, and I was kind of amazed. I was shocked about how, I thought it was going to be like a Sphinx effect. People that go and see the Sphinx in Egypt are really, disappointed when they actually see it. They're like, oh, is that it? It's really small. But I was really amazed by the Eiffel Tower. It was really it was big and like enormous, and I was standing there with my mouth open looking, and like selfie stick out, everything. It was great. And then I walked back to my hotel and I had some like onion soup with bread. Really great. Some rats. I'm not even joking. A rat ran over my foot at the restaurant. So all my like Paris prejudices are coming through.
Just avoid the dog shit.
Yeah.
Was the rat from Ratatouille, perhaps? You're actually using a selfie stick? That was the only thing that really caught my attention.
No. Just only kidding.
Okay, I was hoping for that. Anyways, we'll be back from with your report from Paris next week, perhaps. In other news, in Europe, our editor-at-large Oliver Dale, our man in Florence, have visited EP Summit, first for us, and I think a first for Pitti Immagini, the trade show organization down in Florence that organized a digital fashion conference. This is really kind of the boring stuff, to be honest. But I am really excited about this for various reasons, and the reason is basically that I think that what the fashion world needs the most right now is kind of boring behind the scenes technology in order to solve its problems. It's easy to talk about new garments and talk about new ways to design clothes and renting and recycling and all that that kind of is consumer facing. But I think what's happening behind the scenes is what's going to change the industry. And this is a topic that we will go into quite a lot in the week to come. And just, I was super happy that Oliver were able to visit this trade show. And online now on ScandinavianMind.com, just want to plug this. We have a story from EP Summit where he lists some of the exhibiting kind of brands or innovations. They had several talks and kind of keynotes talking about digital garments and gaming, NFTs, and so on. These kind of topics that we've been talked about, but also like things like which is a virtual showroom, a way to sort of visualize fashion digitally in ways that perhaps haven't been available before. There are also other examples like Electra helps fashion brands with automated fabric cutting, Soprasteria, software development and consulting for end-to-end solutions, whatever that means. Things like this. Have you guys had a chance to look at this story by Oliver?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I actually started back in my early days, I studied at London College of Fashions. I have a natural interest for the fashion industry, and I think it's really fascinating to look at behind the scenes. As you say, there's a lot to fix. I mean, supply chain issues, everything related to sustainability in terms of production, manufacturing, and obviously technology can accelerate that change journey. So I think it's super fascinating, and I was reflecting earlier this week. Why is it that we have this event now that Oliver went to? We have the CB Insights report, as you mentioned. We have the McKinsey a Business of Fashion report on the same topic. I mean, it seems to me that there's there's kind of this tipping point where fashion and technology meets at the moment, which is really, really interesting to deep dive into, which goes beyond this kind of consumer-facing technologies that we have talked about. But so I think it's fascinating.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna say, Oliver Dahle, he's been dropping consistent bangers on the site now, so everyone should actually read this. And like I said, earlier one, I said it. Shout out. The last one he wrote about fashion schools and the fashion colleges, and like you said, kind of the boring stuff makes the world go round in a way. We can sit here and talk about avatars and identity in the metaverse, but this is where it starts, right? Helping the supply chain and making like digital fashion actually really tangible.
Well, and we sense this a lot from Scandinavian Mind perspective. For 2 years ago, we decided to cover the sort of the intersection of lifestyle and technology, how technology is changing fashion, and this has really come to fruition. And in Florence, they have a newly appointed scientific director called Rinaldo Rinaldi, of course. Very dapperly, well-dressed gentleman, as anyone working with Pitti Immagini down in Florence are. And Rinaldo talks in the article about how, when putting fashion companies together, because that's their sort of core business down in Florence, to do trade shows. They have Pitti Uomo, for instance, and Pitti Bambini, and all these other shows. There's a lot of jealousy and competition. But he says that for this event, there was kind of like the fashion industry kind of gathered around this. And he talks about how important it is to create the meeting point for fashion companies to talk about this stuff. And I think what's happening is the fashion industry has realized that if they don't transform, if they don't change their way of working, they're gonna lose out. I think that's the underlying message here, and that's why I think it was interesting to hear that the fashion companies are kind of okay. We need to pay attention to what's happening, because if fashion is such a traditional industry. It's been going on for such a long time, and kind of working the same way for 100 years, producing garments, selling them to retailers that sells them to the consumer, right? But what we were talking about here is a completely different landscape, and that connects with like what you're saying, Roland. Like, it's supply chain. What happens with the world order when we can't no longer rely on production in other parts of the world because of wars, because of trade sanctions and stuff like this. Really kind of the boring stuff that the fashion industry don't like to talk about. But I find this super fascinating, and it's one of my favorite articles that we published the last few weeks or months even.
But something I'm thinking about quite a lot is, cynically speaking, what is driving what here? So this is the hen and the egg question, So obviously, one could argue that the trends that we see in the fashion industry now, adopting more transparency in the supply chain, more sustainable manufacturing processes, all these things are kind of driven by consumer demands. On the other hand, you could say that they are forced to do it because of regulation. Or the third option is obviously that it's just the reason they are adopting tech so fast and so much is because it's just another way to increase growth and increase revenue and profit. Right. So and the point I'm trying to make here is, like, look at Shine. Zero sustainability, but the fastest growing company in the world. I mean, the fashion company, right?
Yeah, the fast fashion kind of Chinese fast fashion company.
Exactly, and like zero sustainability, right? So I'm not actually that convinced that consumers care that much about sustainability, to be honest. I mean, yes, in our parts of the world, of course, but generally speaking, globally, I don't think it's such an issue.
Yeah. Interesting
I
thought.
think there's a lot of signaling going on in terms of consumers caring about sustainability. But what one of the drivers that I've understood, and we can go, I think we should deep dive into this in the weeks and months to come, because there's going to be a lot happening on the regulation front.
Yeah,
And I think
exactly.
a lot of fashion brands are not sort of ready for this. There's stuff boiling in the EU, for instance, about regulating how to deal with textiles, how to deal with transparency, how to deal with sustainability. I'm only sort of superficially aware of these things. I know they are happening. We're going to have on the transformation conference that we're hosting this summer, and later in August, we're going to have a session on this topic, because if the regulation comes in here and the fashion brands, they have to adapt, they have to transform. There's just no way out, and then they have to sort of adhere to or find new technologies, innovations that are presented at conferences like the EP summits, and that's really fascinating.
Yeah.
That's really like behind the scenes things happening in the fashion industry right now.
Yeah, and that was my point. I mean, that was my second bullet, and I think the reason many of these companies now adopt new technologies really, really fast is because they want to. I mean, basically, they know what's coming, right? So,
Right.
It takes a couple of years to change, and they know harder regulations will come. So it's just a way of kind of mitigating.
But
I mean,
yeah,
at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, what the reason is. I think if it turns out that fashion companies is a $3 trillion industry, if it turns out that the fashion industry can become more sustainable, great. It doesn't matter what the reason is behind it, right? If it is for increasing profitability, fine, I don't care. I mean, that's just part of the capitalist system, right? I don't care if companies are doing well or not. That's great. But I think we are fooling ourselves if we believe that the consumer power is so impactful that is the reason why companies are changing.
No.
I think regulatory issues, yes. And then tech is actually providing greater profits at a faster time.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I mean, technology can go either way, right? The Shane example is there. I mean, we can do a whole podcast on that, but the ways of working that I've heard about or learned about is just staggering. The way they can put a product to market in just a few days, based
Yes.
on a trending photograph on Instagram. And they can do it so fast that they don't even have time to produce the actual lookbook image. So what they do is, on the actual e-commerce website, they just steal the photo that they are replicating. They have that as and it goes down so fast also, because they produce it, they sell it, it's out of trend and it's gone. So no one can even keep up with sort of the legal ramifications of stealing sort of copyrighted pictures.
And I think, yeah, you make a great point there. And I mean, obviously, all those processes are automated as well. That is AI, kind of machine learning technologies, advanced analytics that is driving that, right? So I mean, and I think, I'm not trying to be cynical here. Just reality check. Like, if we have robots that replace human labor, if we have machine learning platforms that can scan internet on new trends and translate that into new patterns and new styles, if we have more automation in the supply chain, all these things, why do we see that happening? Well, it is to reduce cost of labor, right? So, but then on the other hand, it also contributes to making the processes more sustainable, maybe more transparent, etc. But yeah, I'm just trying to kind of look at the two sides of this coin.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the flip side is, of course, that the overproduction is so staggering in the fashion world. So can you, I mean, obvious use case of technology is, can we limit overproduction through more sort of streamlined distribution process and so forth? That could have huge benefits for the environment.
And I think it's interesting. I mean, we referenced two reports here, and you will find them in the show notes.
Yeah.
We have the CB Insights report, Fashion, Tech, Future Trends, and the table of content in that report. I mean, it's quite interesting to observe that it is, I mean, 3/4 of the content is about this kind of behind the scenes technology, you know, product design, the manufacturing process, inventory, distribution, supply chain. And then obviously there are chapters about, you know, how we change the retail space, how we change consumer facing engagement and all of that, right? So, but it is really, really about the deep tech and the tech behind the scenes, as you say, that is changing the industry. While on the other hand, what's interesting as maybe a, you know, kind of as an opposite is this Business of Fashion and McKinsey report, where they actually focus more on the consumer facing things. So, you know, metaverse or hyper personalization, connected stores, and, you know, so they have they spend quite a little time on manufacturing related, supply chain related technologies. Kind of interesting to observe that, yeah, they just approach it from different perspectives.
Yeah, and I have a one observation in that as well, and it's kind of funny that I always talk about that evolution is going in two different directions at the same time. One is more high tech and more advanced. The other is kind of more down to the basics, down to nature, down to ground. The more we are on social media, the more the interest in sort of hiking and getting into nature stuff kind of spikes. So the future and the past kind of gets highlighted at the same time. And in that, because something we haven't seen that much innovation in is the retail space. I think you know there's been brewing innovations in the retail space for 10 years, and you know you guys have seen this as well. That you know mirrors that can kind of give information on the garment, or you know these tags you can scan and get more information in your phone and all this. But really, what the retail space is like, you want to go into a store, you want to have a pleasant experience, nice staff, and you want to try on the clothes, and even. Kerry Murphy, the cover story of Scandinavian Mind, talks about that the physical retail experience is still kind of the best way to experience fashion. And you know what he's doing is, of course, trying to find a way to replicate that in a digital session, digital context, in a kind of metaverse context. But he actually mentions that experience. As kind of the baseline for experiencing fashion. And you know my point here being that maybe we don't need to reinvent so much what's facing the consumer. Maybe that's kind of the basics. The consumer wants to, you know, feel like they're looking good, they're on trend, have a good experience in the store, feel like they're cool. Like these are very traditional basic core values. And what we're sort of iterating the same point over and over, but what the fashion industry needs is more what's happening behind the scenes, making sure we don't have this overproduction, we don't have, you know, transport things all over the world, and find a more sort of streamlined way of delivering kind of the same experience that we've wanted for all times, right?
But okay, fair enough. However, I would argue, and this we should talk about this more in depth in a future episode, is the way the mechanics around e-commerce are changing. So and commerce, I would say. So you know, you can cut a lot of steps on the commercial journey by inviting people to these kind of community-based commerce platforms, where basically you are part of a community. It could be by invite, or it could be by purchasing access to a community, and as you enter and become part of this community, then you have availability to purchase. And that cuts a lot of corners, and it creates this sense of belonging. It creates a deeper fan base, much more engagement. So I think there's a lot happening in the commerce space, and especially around e-commerce, where the mechanics around the commercial journey is changing. And I think we should look into this more in depth, because that's when you then also see the benefits of having certain technologies. For example, in Asia, live shopping is huge. I mean, it's one of the fastest growing ways of selling. in the world, and this has been
So meaning
adopted.
someone like there's a live stream of someone trying on clothes and so
Yeah.
forth, and you can then click like in real time on the
Yes.
clothes and buy them.
Exactly, and the reason it works is because it's again this sense of belonging and this community that is built all
Right.
around a brand or a person selling, etc. And that's what you don't get in the traditional retail space, unless, of course, I mean, this will be a very local reference. But I've been a customer at Nitty Gritty for 25 years. You could argue that, you know, it's one store that has a very loyal fan base for the past 25 years, and you know that creates a sense of community. There are those examples, the hyper local examples of those stores around the world. But if you take the big retail chains, they don't have that. I mean, I don't feel a sense of belonging with H&M or even Louis Vuitton, right? It just feels so mass scale, anonymous, and you know, I think there is something there changing, that the commerce space is becoming much more community driven.
Exciting stuff. We've ranted for 20 minutes on fashion tech now without the kind of planning for it. It's obvious that there are many topics that we can deep dive into: retail, supply chain, new manufacturing methods, AR, VR. Let's try to sort of detangle this into separate topics in the weeks to come. In the meantime, anyone who's interested can read up on our latest article from EP Summit in Florence, and also the reports that we've mentioned from Business of Fashion and McKinsey, and also CB Insights research. You'll find them in our show notes. All right, in other lighter news, perhaps, Instagram have started testing NFTs with select creators this week. Let's talk about NFTs one more time. We can't help ourselves. And we're going to end the show talking about the knowledge about NFTs. But Sedin, Erik, you've looked into this story. What's happening?
Yeah, so on Monday this week, the head of Instagram, Adam Mosseri, he explained how now NFTs are coming to Instagram. And we're going to test NFT. People are going to post their NFTs, owners and artists, on Instagram. And we're going to select a few owners and artists to do this. So to start with, it's a beta project. So to start with, they're only supporting Ethereum and Polygon at first. They will probably add more if this is a success. And like Solana and Flow, I'm only assuming. And wallets that they're supporting right now are Rainbow, MetaMask, and Trust Wallet. So they might add more later. But anyway, so basically, this thing they said on Monday that they're going to try this whole week. They're going to take this big step. It includes three big highlights, or three things that it's included in this push. So it's connecting a digital wallet. So once you're connected to your wallet, you will have the ability to choose whatever NFT is in there. So let's say you have 100, you can just choose and post it on Instagram. And the second thing, that's sharing the collectible. How does it look when it's shared on Instagram? I thought maybe like this was on Monday, he said this. So I've been like kind of curiously checking Instagram every week, checking these creators, checking these selected few that we're supposed to share. And I haven't seen anything. But today then, last night actually, when we were sleeping, the first ever Instagram NFT was posted. And I thought maybe like the feed would start warping and like it would be some kind of sound and some cool effects, but it's basically just a regular picture with a little, verification tick at the bottom. So, and I don't know. I don't have the receipt of how to go about this, but I don't know. I think it was kind of underwhelming. Anyways, and then the third part thing that comes with this is, which I think is actually pretty cool, is an automatic tagging of both the creator and the collector. So this is cool. Let's say you create art and you create an NFT. Whenever someone posts this on Instagram or share it through their wallet, let's say I make one, I will always be tagged. My name will always pop up there. You can't hide from it. And I think this is pretty cool.
That's interesting.
Us being journalists and stuff, and me always writing all these articles, finding pictures. Who am I supposed to tag? Who's the photographer? I think it's really cool of sharing stuff and reposting stuff and always knowing exactly who it is. Like Instagram will get to the bottom.
I think that's
pretty cool.
That example, Erik, is I mean, this is my 5 cents after having heard about this 15 seconds ago. I think that example is probably the one that is going to scale and
Hope
that
so.
will have the biggest impact. Because obviously, I mean, I'm reposting stuff every day. People are doing it every day, right? And I try to be nice and kind of mention the photographer or the artist that I'm reposting. But I think that is in itself, it's kind of a social media watermark that you
Yeah,
cannot
yeah.
get away from. I think that is super, super interesting. What I was booing about in Konrad's introduction
I love that
was actually
you started. Now we're booing each other on the podcast. Let's.
no, but seriously, I mean, I just get more and more frustrated and annoyed how shitty looking all the NFTs are. You know,
Right.
it's just like, I don't try to be elitist in my aesthetics, but it just looks like shit. It's just amateurish, and I think that in itself is one of the problems of why NFT art, let's say, is not like, it's not gonna take off really. I
Oh,
mean,
of course.
unless you get the aesthetics in place. Anyways, enough of
Yeah.
the ranting. I like this this automatic tagging that you're talking about. That is super exciting.
Talking about that whole tagging thing, I know I had a friend when I was in high school. He would go on like Tumblr, Pinterest, whatever, and he would just screenshot like pictures of cool cars and nice villas and hotels and private jets, and he would post them on his Insta. He made an Instagram account called like Luxury Living or something, and he had no idea who the photographer was, whose car it was, whose whose villa it was, but he would gain such a big traction. This is like early days of Instagram. And he got like back then like 30,000 followers was huge. He would start selling stuff, like having competitions and doing these like influencer collaboration stuff back then. And I just thought about like, it's crazy, me being a creative and a photographer, how he just stole stuff. Like he just stayed up, screenshotted them, reposted it, and no one, like even the people followed, they had no idea who it was. Like, who is this person? Who is this photographer? I want to see more.
What you're talking about there is, it's kind of like the Napster era of sharing photos. It's a kind of Wild West. You're just sharing all over the place. There are many examples of kind of brands that have started that way. There's a cult fashion brand in the States called JJJ Jound that started as one of these kind of Tumblr blogs. He just posted the most awesomely curated posts of wonderful like clothes and cars and places and lifestyle objects. Roland, maybe you remember this.
I remember, yes.
And he has taken it down since, because he merged into a brand, and now he's selling kind of, to me, kind of boring hoodies and baseball caps and stuff like that. But that was how Tumblr worked. Like, you reposted like crazy, and obviously the promise of Web3, what we've been talking about a lot on the podcast and in the magazine, is this kind of both the decentralization of it, but also the way that creators can actually monetize their work of art. There's technology in place that can as this example that you can, if you want to see how it works, we can link to an article on TechCrunch that has the screenshots where the creator of the artwork gets tagged. It's really fascinating. But the other thing is, of course, that this is Meta, Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook. They want to tap into this economy. They are really adamant about it. There was a really good interview with Adam Mosseri, I think, on the Techkery podcast. I can't remember. He talks at length about this, and he wants to kind of create a new kind of ecosystem where, very idealistic, he wants sort of YouTube and Google and Snapchat and TikTok and all these companies to come together to standardize how to basically publish the works of art from creators. And that's a utopia of sorts. I don't know where they're aiming with that. Sounds like it's not going to happen. I don't know, but this is obviously a first step from them, and it's no surprise that it's Adam Mosseri that sort of leading the way. I think he's really forward thinking about this.
But can I ask you, Erik? I'm just curious. do you know if that automatic tagging is only going to be for verified kind of wallet connected accounts?
That's what they're only in beta now, obviously, and they only posted one NFT. But that's what I realized, that it's only when you post through the wallet that you can see who the the owner and the creator is. So, but I would only assume, let's say they make some kind of AI algorithm thing that if you screenshot something, you can kind of match what the original looks like. And in the future, like in Utopia, maybe that's what I would like, at least. So you could match the original if everything on Instagram is through the blockchain and everything.
But this is again, I think we should do more research on this, and I will definitely do it. But this might actually be one of the solutions to scale NFTs. I mean, in the creator community, because obviously every artist, every photographer, every designer, they want to own whatever they create, right? And I think I mean, obviously a lot of designers and artists have adopted these new technologies, but I mean, it's still a very small percentage, right? But but every artist, every photographer have a problem today with these kind of reposts and stealing of their artwork, etc. So I mean, this could maybe force the creator community to actually adopt these new Web3 technologies and platforms in order to secure ownership, basically. So I think this is really, really interesting. So the booing was more about the shitty aesthetics, but the sharing is really about this. I think the automated tagging, that's super, super interesting.
It is, yeah.
Well, we're going to talk more about NFTs and the development of them. This is going to be a longer episode than usual because earlier this week I spoke to Oskar Noid, the head of innovation for Samsung Nordics, who recently launched a report called Digital Connection about the sort of general population's view of NFTs. And guys, how many percentage-wise, how many people has bought an NFT in Sweden? Can you guess?
0.2.
0.05.
You're actually lowballing it. It's actually 2%. So it's
Really?
it's bigger than that.
Wow. Okay.
There are also other findings. 6% of people asked say they are looking into buying NFTs in sort of the weeks and months to come.
Wow.
Anyways, we're going to get into this now, talking to Oskar Noid, the head of innovation for Samsung Nordics, about this new survey about NFTs. Enjoy. All right, so now I'm here with Oskar Noid, head of innovation at Samsung Nordics. Oskar, good to speak to you again.
Good to speak to you, Konrad.
So the reason we're talking is, of course, that you guys released, I think, the first of its kind. I've never seen anything like it in Sweden or the Nordics. Big survey on the knowledge of NFTs within the sort of wide population. It's sort of the title is Digital Connection: The View of NFTs. So I'm super curious. We're going to go into some of the findings, but just to begin with, why did you guys decide to do this report?
Well, first of all, NFT is such an interesting area. We think that there is still a big information gap. Still a lot of people are curious about it, and actually we'll come back to that in the report as well, which confirms our suspicions that there is a big curiosity. But overall, we see that there's also a really good match to what Samsung does. I mean, we create technology that you have in your living room or in every room of your home, where you can both create art, you can store art, and you can enjoy art. So we have a good match to the NFT market and wanted to understand what the people across Nordics thought about it.
Super fascinating. And the last time we spoke to each other was on stage at the Otherlands NFT festival that you guys also were a part of or a supporter of. So this conversation feels a little bit like a continuation of that. But let's just go directly to some of the findings. I think there's some sobering numbers to get from this. Listeners of this podcast know we talk a lot about NFTs, and if you're into sort of crypto things happening in the NFT art space, you can kind of easily get the appearance that everyone is into this and everyone is buying NFTs, and as this study shows, that is so not the case. Just to pick a few numbers about how many people that has invested in NFTs the last years, a staggering 2%. Were you surprised by these numbers, or was it something you expected?
I was not very surprised by the numbers. I think, because we saw, for example, a lot more people have invested or have awareness around cryptocurrencies. And I think if we asked around cryptocurrencies just a few years ago, we would probably get the same 2%. So I think it's natural. It's in NFTs in an early stage. I mean, there has been some things that have happened that have got big media coverage, like, art being sold for, or digital art being sold for like $600 million. So obviously these things attract a lot of attention, but I mean, overall awareness is still quite low, and that was expected.
Let's go into some of the other findings here. What were some of the things that surprised you, or what stuck out when you got the numbers back from this survey?
Well, I think one part which was really interesting is around what we just said. Only 2% have invested in NFT in the last 12 months, but there is a growing interest in investing in NFT. So there's around half of Swedes know about NFT. In Sweden, I think this was a Nordic survey that we did across all 4 Nordic countries. So I mean, in Sweden, around half of the population know about NFT. In Denmark and Norway, it's a little bit less, it's around 1/3, and Finland is actually down to like just 1/4 of the population that knows about NFT. So Sweden is definitely leading in terms of awareness in the Nordics. We can also see clearly that there is a age gap here. So we see in the younger generation, 18 to 29-year-olds, as a much higher, 7 out of 10 people in that age bracket have heard about NFT and are somewhat interested. Whereas if we look in the above 50-year-old, we are less than 1 in 3 people that know about NFT. I think that's also reflected a little bit, coming back to why we did this survey. It was a lot about being a part of this market and being a credible source of information and sharing information in a slightly different way. I mean, today, a lot of the information around NFT is coming through YouTube or other digital channels, and it's spreading organically that way. But I think now Samsung has a good role to take in this, to spread knowledge as well around it. So
there's also some difference in gender. When you read the numbers, were you surprised by this?
Well, it's again not very surprising. I would say that when it comes, it's, let's say, typical of when it comes to new technology and especially financial instruments. Normally, it has a higher awareness among men. When it has a more, let's say, social interest, then it has new tech is more popular among women. So again, it kind of just confirmed that that's also the way that NFT is viewed. So
let's talk a little bit more about the future for Samsung in this space, and feel free to talk as much or as little as you can describe. But obviously, you were a sponsor of this NFT art festival. We've talked about it in this podcast. I was obviously there as a moderator as well, in full transparency. So this was a situation where obviously Samsung was present, with your screens, very, very clear sort of use case. A lot of Nordic NFT artists were there displaying their work on your screens. What future do you see for Samsung in this space, or what role do you see for Samsung? Is there any more nuance you can give there?
Yes, absolutely. So I think, again, there's these 3 areas within NFT that are quite clear. first of all around creation, using our products to create NFT. And that was a lot about what Other Lands was about. It was bringing artists together, letting them inspire each other, how to create on our products, with our products in different ways. So we had some great art being created live there on one of our Tab S8. So it's really good to see. So, and I mean, that's something that we will keep doing, definitely from Samsung side. Then we have the possibility to enjoy your art. That would be the second bucket, to somehow display. Also, when we talk about NFT, we tend to compare it a lot to art which is hanging on the wall. Of course, that's one big part of it, and there you could use, for example, our frame TVs or something like that. But also NFTs can also be music, or can be a lot of other things, where you also can use Samsung's technology to enjoy it. And then the last part, which gets a little bit more technical, is around the storing and being able to secure the blockchain. So there's initiatives all over the world that is, we have Samsung Pay, we have the Samsung blockchain wallet, and we have Samsung Pass, which is using biometric authentication for passwords. So bringing those three together is now becoming something that is called Samsung Wallet, where I see a future where NFT definitely has a part in the Samsung Wallet. Even though today it's mainly based around using blockchain technology and cryptocurrencies, but definitely NFTs will be part of your wallet or digital wallet for the future. So I think we have a lot of interesting things happening here.
That's super interesting. I was not aware of that, that you did the wallet, but I did notice in the survey that you were asking kind of about the consumers' worries or risks about investing in NFTs, and I'm guessing this is why you asked the question. You're talking about being a credible source. There is some, obviously a lot of debate about the volatility of cryptocurrencies, the volatility of the price of NFTs. So you're saying that Samsung wants to be a kind of a safe haven of NFT, so to speak. Is that correct?
I like the expression safe haven. I wish we can be a safe haven, but I mean, in the meanwhile, let us at least be, as we said, a credible source. So I think what's so interesting about NFT is that it's a good mix of a grassroots movement, which comes from the art community, which is building up, and then there's big tech, where we have to include Samsung, that is, coming from the other perspective of it, and this is really merging it all together. So when it comes to risk and investment, I think that's also, I mean, we asked a lot in the survey around how you look at NFT as an investment, and that's where, again, Samsung can teach you a little bit about how it works. We can see that a lot of people are very still worried about the volatility of NFT. I mean, if we look at just at the price changes that have happened over the years, I mean, November last year, we saw some kind of peak in terms of pricing of NFTs, went down to almost half, and now it's bounced back again in April. So we see a huge volatility, and Samsung is not going to be your investment advisor in this, so that's up to you. But be careful, and having knowledge about what it is that you invest in, that's what we want to contribute with.
Wonderful. And just be honest now, are you part of the 2% or you're part of the 98% that hasn't bought an NFT? Where do you stand yourself?
Yeah, so I'll give you an honest answer. I am not part of the 2% that have invested in NFT, but I am part of the 6% that plan to invest in NFT.
Okay.
And I think that's also really interesting to see that when we asked people, not a lot of people have invested in NFT, we talked about that, but we see a quite big portion that intend to invest in NFT, especially, again, looking at the 18 to 29-year-olds. We saw that in that group, 8% had invested in NFT, but up to 17% are planning to in the coming 12 months. And I think that is just so interesting to see that it's a big portion. And also, I'm thinking that when we look at other ways to invest, we also asked about that like asking to like cryptocurrencies, traditional art, or the stocks or bonds. And I think what's interesting was that none of the other ones went down, meaning that investing into NFT is something you want to do additional. It's something new. It's not that you would invest less in art, which for me, Konrad, we've met a few times. I'm very interested in art. My passion in NFT comes from the art side of it. So I'm really hoping that NFT can be the kind of what Napster did for the music industry, even though that was illegal, but it was a start of growing a huge interest in music that I think we're still seeing today, and the possibility to stream music. And I hope that NFT, even though small today, might scratch the surface and just bring out a bigger art interest in the general world, in the general population, where you can come into your art interest from a tech or investment perspective in a way that maybe the traditional art world has not been that open to the general public.
I like that sentiment a lot. And so just to end with, from your own art interest, for someone who's not into art, where would you recommend them to start? What are some of your favorites, be they traditional artists or NFT artists?
Yeah, well, again, my interest really comes from the art interest, and I can honestly say I'm at the moment looking into buying a Maurits Karlström with painting that I've been looking at for a long time. It's a bit more expensive than I can afford, but I would say that start with your love, find something that you're passionate about. Don't invest money that you're in need of. Just buy something that you're passionate about. Expect that prices might go up and down. That's going to be the case. So my only advice is that kind of follow your heart and invest in something that feels good and that you're not necessarily seeing it as just an investment.
So just to end with, is there anything, where can we see this going from Samsung? Will you continue doing these reports, or is there anything else you want to mention in terms of where you are going into this space, just to end the conversation with?
Yeah, well, I think definitely you'll see more from Samsung in this space. First of all, what we've learned from this survey is that there is a big interest, but people are worried about the barriers and risks of this. But there is also an interesting paradox in this, which means that I'm also not that interested in learning more, which is, again, there is a big interest, but I'm also not interested in learning more. And I think from Samsung's perspective, we want to fill that void and make it easily accessible to find the right kind of information that you are interested in. So you're going to see some upcoming reports on this. We're not right now looking into things around the metaverse and specifically around security. So keep an eye out. There's going to be a few more reports from our side, but also you will see us more in terms of art collaborations as well going forward. So definitely a lot more interesting things happening.
Good stuff. Looking forward to that. Oskar Nöj, the head of innovation for Samsung Nordics. Thank you so much for speaking to me.
Thanks, Konrad.
All right, that was Oskar Nöjd, head of innovation at Samsung Nordics. Guys, this has been a packed episode. We had a lot to talk about. Maybe, Roland, your pause from last week made you want to talk even more on the podcast.
Yeah, maybe. I'm going to London next week. What are you guys doing?
I might be going to Gothenburg to check out the Einride pod.
Ooh,
oh yeah,
Einride.
I mean, I wanted to go. That was my trip, but I have a kind of a company to run, so I couldn't go. So I really envy
Konrad.
You. No, but
Exactly.
I've been writing about this Einride pod for like 2.5 years now, so I really have to see with my own eyes to believe it, kind of.
It was yours. It was yours to take that trip. Also, we'll learn more about what you've been doing in Paris.
Yeah.
And a bunch of stuff coming out online. Obviously we had the big interview with Jesper Kautoft from Issue 3 is now
Loved
online.
it.
The founder
Loved it.
of Teenage Engineer.
Amazing.
Wonderful story. Actually, I'm sorry to say, Roland, and I'm sorry to say to myself, it's the one story that I've received most compliments in this issue. Wonderful interview.
I'm
by,
not surprised. I
Helena.
mean, it was a great story, and also it's a great person. So I mean, all credit to the.
Super happy about that. And I've also, I was in Helsinki last week, also planning. I have an idea of doing a launch of issue 4 in Helsinki later this fall. We should start thinking about new stories that can
Oh my
trump
God!
the Jesper
Deadlines coming up again.
Deadlines are looming.
I have to fly back to Stockholm now.
Exactly. All right, guys. This has been a great show. This has been Scandinavian Mind Weekly with me, Konrad Olsson, Roland, Philippe Kretzschmar, and Erik Sedin. Don't forget to sign up for our newsletter. Visit scandinavianmind.com/newsletter. Until next week, goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.